Let's talk about grades. For so long, they felt like the end of the story. But what if we flipped the script? Today, we're diving into something called formative feedback. It's a really powerful way to stop focusing on the final grade and start focusing on the actual journey of learning. To foster real, continuous growth.
You know the feeling, right? You get a paper back, you see that letter or number at the top, and it just feels final. Like a judgment has been passed. The end. But is that really what it's supposed to be about? Are we missing the whole point? Because what if that grade wasn't a period at the end of a sentence? What if it was more like an ellipsis? An invitation to keep the conversation going. A conversation about what you can do next. That right there, that's the huge mindset shift we're going to unpack today.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll talk about getting beyond the final grade. Then, we'll introduce you to a really cool concept called the Learning GPS. After that, we'll open up your assessment toolkit, learn how to start charting the journey, and finally, bring it all home by making progress visible. Let's jump in.
First things first, if we want to move beyond just the final grade, we have to start at the beginning. And the absolute starting line for any useful feedback isn't the test, it's having a crystal clear goal of what you're trying to achieve in the first place.
And look, this isn't just a nice idea. Research backs this out completely. The bottom line is, feedback just doesn't work very well unless students know the goal and get feedback pretty often. It's kind of like a GPS in your car, right? If you don't plug in a destination, all those turn-by-turn directions are completely useless. They're just noise.
So, if that clear goal is our destination, then how do we actually navigate the trip? Well, that's where this idea of a learning GPS comes into play. Think of it as a system for guiding students along the path to really mastering a topic. Now, the engine that powers this whole GPS is something called formative assessment. And here's the key thing to get. This is not a one-and-done test. It's a continuous, ongoing process where everybody, teachers and students, are constantly checking in, seeing where they are, and, adjusting the route if they need to. It's basically real-time navigation for learning.
So how do we map this out? Well, this proficiency scale is a fantastic tool. It makes the journey super clear. A 2.0 basically means, okay, I get the basics, the foundational stuff. The 3.0 is the target. That's where you can handle all the complex ideas we're actually learning in class. And a 4.0, oh, that's when you're really flying. You're going beyond, making connections, and applying what you've learned in totally new ways.
All right, so the theory sounds great, but how do we actually pull this off in a busy classroom? How do we gather all this information? Well, it's time to open up our assessment toolkit and look at some real practical strategies.
Inside this toolkit, you're going to find three main kinds of tools. You've got your obtrusive assessments, your unobtrusive ones, and then my personal favorite, student-generated ones. Let's quickly break down what each of those means.
Okay, so let's start with the first two. Obtrusive assessments are probably what you're most used to. Think of a quiz or a test, anything that kind of pauses the lesson for a check-in. Unobtrusive assessments, on the other hand, are way more subtle. They're happening in the background. It's like a teacher just watching students work on a project, gathering all these little bits of information without interrupting the flow at all.
But this third tool, man, this one is a secret weapon. Student-generated tasks. This is where you empower learners to design their own ways of showing you what they know. The ownership and creativity this builds is just off the charts. It is a total game changer, and believe it or not, it's one of the most underused strategies out there.
And now we get to the payoff. All this information we're collecting, it's not just to fill up a spreadsheet. Its real power comes alive when we use it to make the learning journey visible, not just to us, but to the student and even the whole class.
Just look at this example. So this student wants to hit a 3.0. On February 5th, they're at a 1.5. But look what happens. A week later, they hit 2.0. They hang out there for a bit, and then by the end of the month, they've pushed up to a 2.5. This isn't just a list of scores, it's a story of growth. You can actually see the progress, and that is so incredibly motivating.
And what's really cool is that you can zoom out from one student to get a bird's eye view of the entire class. This one chart gives a teacher an instant snapshot. You can see right away, okay, 60% of my class is hitting the target, and another 20% are already crushing it at the next level. This data tells you exactly where you need to focus your time and energy next.
Okay, so the final piece of this puzzle is all about reflection. How do we actually know if any of this is working? And for that matter, how do we get better at doing it? It all comes down to making that progress visible for absolutely everyone involved.
Here's how you know you're really onto something. When your students can do these three things, they can actually tell you, in their own words, how they've gotten better. They're actively tracking themselves on that scale. And maybe most important of all, they can tell you exactly what they need to do to get to the next level. Suddenly, learning isn't some big mystery anymore.
And hey, this reflection isn't just for the students. We've got to turn the mirror on ourselves, too. This simple scale lets us do that. Are we just developing, tracking progress but not really checking if it's working? Or are we applying it, tracking it, and seeing how it affects learning? The goal, of course, is to get to innovating, where we're adapting these amazing strategies for every single kid.
So as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with one final thought. Look, this doesn't have to be some massive, intimidating overhaul of everything you do. It can start small. So the question is, what's just one step, one small thing you can try tomorrow to start making that shift, to start a conversation about growth, not just grades?